On today's show, technology has evolved in ways that shape our reality. But what if there were other realities? Alternate versions of ourselves, living different lives. Marco Pasqua explores the journey of accessible technologies, how innovation creates new possibilities, and the mind-bending idea that somewhere out there, another version is living out different decisions. Please make your next decision to stay tuned.
This is Kelly and Company.
Yeah, I know, kind of a half Rod Serling, kind of half announcer voice. Sorry, folks. Give it a shot, though, just off the top of the head. Welcome to Kelly and Company. Check us out through our YouTube page. We've got all sorts of cool content over there for you to enjoy. Of course, you can subscribe to the podcast. Tell you more about that stuff later in our social media feeds. Welcome in today, Amanda Shekarchi joining Nazreen Abdel-Majid and I as hosts of the program. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Amanda, last week you were being kept really busy. Fill us in on what was going on, because it sounds like cool stuff. And, of course, us media geeks all love this.
Yeah, so last week I hosted the first installment of a series that I started with a professor of mine called Music Conversations. And this was at the Ryerson Toronto Metropolitan University campus, where we try to gather people to hear different artists talk. So if it's me interviewing an artist or other TMU professors. And the first one kicked off on Friday with Toronto hip hop soul artist Dynasty, who shared her really motivational and inspirational story of how she got to music and just attacked life challenges like being homeless with such positivity and really just using music as an outlet to get through it.
Wow. Some conversations out of that event. Wow, that is really neat when you get to experience events like this, especially on that education piece, the volunteer piece that you're doing over there. Nazreen, when you were in broadcast school, did you guys ever run anything kind of like that? And what was your majors?
Yeah, especially for when I was in Ryerson, I would do a lot of that. I would actually do a lot of the broadcasting for the campus, which was fun, and we do a lot of those interviews with different students and stuff. So that was pretty much fun, but I didn't get the opportunity to try to interview different artists. It was mainly just one of my classmates actually was part of a band, and we took the opportunity to kind of like showcase his music and his work and how he came about that life. So it was really fun.
In school, ladies, either of you interview what you would consider, doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, an actual, quote, celebrity artist, unquote, that might be more of a name to the general mill person out there. Nazreen, did you have anyone?
How about Danny Fernando? I mean, he was a big artist, but it wasn't in school. This was like a couple years ago for this podcast I was a part of, and they brought up Danny Fernando. I don't know if you guys remember him.
I don't know if I do that. I don't think so.
He was a big artist. He worked with, oh my God, he worked with so many big artists like Drake and things like that. So, but that was back then, and then he just stopped after, not too long ago, a few years ago, he stopped. But we finally brought him on the podcast, and that was like a big thing for us. So we wanted to get more.
But that's really exciting. Amanda, did you, with doing school, we've talked about, of course, here on the show, you're some of the people you've met, talked to. Who would you say would be that celebrity down the road? You'd say at this point, down the road, right? I'm saying at this point, but down the road, that you had a chance to interview in that capacity.
So at this point, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this Disney Plus show, The Bear, which is like a food show. But this Toronto-based artist, Jennifer Castles, she wrote a song called Blowing Kisses, which ended up being featured in the soundtrack of The Bear. So that was a really cool conversation to talk to her what that experience was like and just about her music, because she's been making music for many years now. And yeah, it was really great.
Okay. Awesome, ladies. Well, I have to say, in school, probably I was board opting one day, and we brought into the studio these artists, and a couple of my schoolmates did the interview. What are the artists' names? It was a band, big in the, of course, the 90s, you know, the a long time. Oh, yeah. They were called In Sync. Not sure you guys know those people, but anyway.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No way. Wow.
Duh.
Yeah. So that was probably, you know, and then afterward I went out and had them sign my Braille music sheet because my cousin wanted autographs of the band, and the only thing I had was the playlist of songs because I was on air and then had to board op the interview. So really cool.
That's
All right.
so
Also,
cool.
what's really cool, let's tell you what's going on today here on the show. Let's get things started. But you can always email us at kellyco@ami.ca and call us at 1-866-509-4545. That's, of course, 1-866-509-4545.
The Juno Awards are back on March 30th. This awards show celebrates Canadian music, and the ceremony is taking place in Vancouver at the Rogers Arena. Michael Bublé is hosting the show. Music critic Amanda Shekarchi will share the highlights from this year's nominees. Hi, Amanda, and let's start off with what categories captured your attention this year?
Thank you so much, Nazreen. Yeah, so there's a lot of great categories that captured my attention, one of which is Artist of the Year, and some of the nominations include Josh Ross, Shawn Mendes, and Tate McRae, as well as The Weeknd. Tate McRae's album Think Later was also nominated for Album of the Year, and both Shawn Mendes and Tate McRae are nominated for Single of the Year, Shawn Mendes with YYY and Tate McRae with X's. Both of those songs are such a bop. And I also want to highlight that for Group of the Year, Toronto's very own The Beaches are nominated, which is always great when you see local artists being nominated for these types of awards. Yeah.
I have to say, Tate McRae, I didn't know who she was until I recognized her on TikTok. And it's so bad to say, but there's so much of this music that, like, recently I've caught it caught my attention because of TikTok, because it was, you know, under a lot of videos. You know, a lot of people use that audio, and that's what captures my attention. And it's like, oh, this song is actually big. And then I scrolled her page, and she's very talented. I mean, she has some catchy songs.
Totally.
Josh Ross as well. Again, same thing. But I've never been a big country music type of gal. So when I heard his music at first, I was like, oh wow, like it really is quite nice, and it surprised me of how much I liked his music, especially Complicated. But I was like looking at the nominees, and I'm sure you'd agree, but he got nominated for quite a few categories.
Yes, I definitely saw that. But what you were saying about Tate McRae, so the crazy thing for me is I was scrolling through YouTube. I think this was like 2018-ish, and this was like when she wasn't that big yet. She was just posting her home videos of songs she wrote or covers she's done, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl has it. She has such a great voice. She has such a natural energy. And then a few years later, she's blowing up on TikTok, and everyone's talking about Tate McRae, and I'm just like, dude, I called this years ago.
Yeah, I didn't. So this was me finding about her right when I was scrolling through TikTok and she was trending, her songs were trending, which is brilliant. I mean, nowadays it's so easy to showcase your music, especially through TikTok and Instagram. It's fun and it's easy. I mean, before it was just all talk, you know, you'd have to have connections to showcase your music to radio shows or TV channels or whatever it may be to get those connections. But now you throw it up on TikTok and bam, it blows up if it's good enough, and you know you make it, you know you made it. That's just it's brilliant. But Shawn Mendes and who else? The Weeknd. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, The Weeknd released his album this year, so it didn't surprise me that he was nominated a couple times. What surprised me was that he wasn't nominated for Album of the Year. I think he was only nominated for...
That surprised me too. I was like, for a second, I'm like, am I reading this wrong? Why am I not seeing his album name there?
Yeah. For the Juno Awards, I feel like that he's usually in every single category because he's big.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, that was definitely surprising. But I want to throw this out to you, Nazreen. Like, because the Junos are all about celebrating Canadian music, what Canadian artists or albums have you been listening to recently?
I have to admit that when I like an album, I replay it a bunch of times for a certain amount of weeks, maybe months.
Yes.
And I have to admit that Tate McRae and The Weeknd were my top listened to recently in these past couple of months. When The Weeknd released his album, I was like, okay, everybody's listening to it now. I should get the gist of it. So I started listening to it and I was so shocked of how amazing his album was. And the transitions between each song to the next was so subtle, so smooth. It was absolutely beautiful. You have to listen to them in order and you'll understand what I'm saying. Let them play in order of the... Did you notice that?
I have to listen to it fully, but I think just knowing The Weeknd stuff and the way that he plays around with production, that it's definitely one of those albums that you have to listen to in order. And speaking of that, so I've been listening to a lot of independent albums recently, and two that come to mind here that are like that. So Toronto artist Eliza Niemi just released an album called Progress Bakery, which I'm really liking, and she does a lot of cool like sound design, combining kind of classical music with singer-songwriter, and recommend listening to that with headphones so you can pick up all the cool stuff that she does. And I've also really been into Bukola. She's an artist from Vancouver, and her EP, The Confessions of an Antisocial Butterfly, has literally been on repeat since I discovered it, like end of February. And it's really that project for people in their late 20s trying to figure out what their next chapter will be, because she talks about, you know, trying to balance the creative passions with family expectations. But then you also have songs about like unrequited love and not being in love before, and I just find that so relatable. And another album I've been enjoying by a Canadian artist is Jennifer Castle's album Camelot, another record you should listen to in order. The production and vocals are just really over the top on this one, so I really enjoy it.
So what's your favorite genre?
So this... a couple years ago, this would have been such an easy question. I would have just said pop, mainstream pop, singer-songwriter pop. But now that I'm volunteering at Met Radio, which is our campus station, I've been exposed to so many different genres of music that it kind of all depends on my mood, because sometimes I'll go to pop, but then I'll put on like a folk record or like an indie rock record. So it's all what I'm feeling, or if it's like Like the Confessions EP that I just talked about, the Bucolo record, like that's a R&B record, and I really like it. So I think just being able to branch out into different genres, and with all the cross genres that you have these days, it's nice because you're exposed to a lot of different types of production and music.
Yeah. No, I honestly, in the past, same thing. I would feel like I would stick to one genre, R&B, and now it's so much more diverse. And I do believe that, and I say this a lot, but social media has a lot to play with it. Thank you so much, Amanda. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so fun.
The Juno Awards kick off March 30th, on March 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern. The easiest way to tune in is on the CBC Music YouTube page.
I enjoy the Junos. Again, it goes back to the Canadian Pride. We were having a talk with Greg David about it. And there's just so much that you learn about the Canadian artists, so many different ways that we're exposing people. And then you get that reflection of the people of the past who come back to talk. I know Anne Murray and people getting dedications to them and recognition this year. And it just reminds you so much. So thanks, ladies. Fantastic chat. Remember to check out our podcast from your podcast platform of choice. And while you're in there, give us a rating and review. Do the same with the YouTube page, if you would. Go up there and subscribe and enjoy all the different content that we make available. Here comes a fascinating conversation that blends the evolution of assistive technology with the concept of alternative realities. Technology has come a long way, from the first wheelchair in the 5th century to the cutting-edge AI and exoskeletons of today. But every innovation, just like every personal decision, can change the course of our lives in ways we may not even realize. Could there be alternate versions of us living out some of these other choices, the different ones that we may have thought about making? And how does innovation shape the world that we experience? So let's dive into it with Marco Pasqua, who joins us. So Marco, technology has changed so much, especially for people with disabilities. Right. Start, if you would, sir, by walking the ladies and I and our viewers and listeners some of the biggest advancements in assistive tech and what they've meant for accessibility.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kelly. And, I just want to give some context. The reason why I wanted to do this segment, it was because March 1st was International Wheelchair Day. And that really made me think, because I'm a wheelchair user. I use a manual wheelchair, and I did some research. And as you said in the intro, the first wheelchair was actually invented in the 5th century in China. Now, obviously, those wheelchairs probably looked a little different. They probably look more like tuk-tuks, or something of this, like a rickshaw or something like this, where you can pull someone around. But it just made me think, like, where would I be in the world today without my wheelchair? In terms of being able to actually physically move around, but also to interact and be involved in society, right? And then, flash forward from the 5th century to the technology that we have today, like you said in the intro. Now we have things like our hearing aid technology, even technology like white canes, like that you use. People would say, well, isn't that just a metal stick? And there's so much more to that technology than just being a metal stick, the way that the end vibrates when you hit certain things. And now we have exoskeletons that are, I don't know if you've heard the ad online, but now they have an exoskeleton that you can bring home for $1,000. I can't even imagine that now in 2025 we're sitting here at $1,000 to bring home exoskeleton. So really, the technology is just endless, and it makes me think, wow, think about the number of lives that it's impacted in terms of who's using it.
Yeah, and I think all of us will agree. The freedoms that you get, like you said, bringing the exoskeleton home, we're talking different freedoms that reshapes what everyone can do. I mean, technology changes so fast now. Marco, I remember us sitting back and, wow, it moves. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, things seemed to move at a slow pace. There was such a market for things, but small market. And the big boys out there said, no, it's too small for us to worry about making this accessible stuff. And laws and so many other things have changed that now.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think that, accessibility especially has been seen as an add-on feature. Many times with our phones, even, it would be like if you wanted to look for accessibility, you had to look for a special section in the manual. And now, companies like Apple, over the last several years, have been prioritizing accessibility to the point where those are actual full-fledged commercials talking about the AI features and talking about the various things that the phones can do in terms of picking up certain sounds and alerting you of those sounds. Oh, that's a baby crying, these kinds of things. And so people are starting to blend that whole, this isn't just about people with disabilities, that technology like this actually benefits all people. And I'm proud to see that we've come to a place where that's been recognized.
Mm-hmm. What if it didn't
I know
exist?
it's another.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Nazreen.
I was going to say that I love that you guys said it's another way of feeling free. It's another way of feeling like it's a type of freedom for us. And the fact that, we have such easy access to these things, super grateful.
Well, like that wheelchair
100%.
you mentioned was probably a pull along, like a rickshaw, like you say. It didn't give a person the same kind of freedom, Marco, that you would talk about today. And if that didn't happen, then we wouldn't have what you have today.
100%, right? I think that, we had to make iterations. We had to see what was working for people, what wasn't working. And to the question you just asked, Kelly, what if it didn't exist today? So I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a huge quantum physics nerd. And the idea of the many worlds interpretation, or for you Marvel fans out there, alternate realities, always crosses my mind in terms of innovations. Some of the greatest innovators of the world, like Einstein or Tesla with his Warden Tower. I don't know if you've seen the movie Tomorrowland. It came out many, many years ago. It was a Disney movie, but it's this idea of what if we lived in a world where technologies like Nikola Tesla wasn't suppressed by other inventors like Edison, for example, because of the fact that money got involved. And where would we be should the greed not present itself to let technology thrive in a way that we could actually see our world in a completely different way and interact in our world in a completely different way? And so, the possibilities are truly endless.
Wow, it's phenomenal when you think about it. And, I know, Amanda, for myself, I always think, what would that alternate version of myself be? What if I stuck with doing large print when I was a kid and didn't get more into computer? I'd be really regressed in what I can do. I mean, I have the skill of listening to a computer. Is there something you could think about, Amanda, quickly for yourself that would have been like that? You could think, geez, if I didn't pick that up, where would I be?
For sure. Yeah, like what comes to mind for me is like the excitement of when the iPod Touch released the first, in 2010, that it had the voiceover feature. So it's like I can, just like all my sighted friends, I can use my iPod and listen to music. And then with the iPhone, being able to text and being able to do the everyday emailing to because that's how everyone communicates now.
Yes.
And seeing
Totally.
social media apps being more accessible is always exciting. So the fact that okay, now I know how to use these products independently is always exciting.
So, Marco, what choice, if we looked into an alternate version of ourselves, do you believe we'd be making, or there are people out there like us making that different decision? It's got to be in a world with 8 billion.
I'd like to think so. I'd actually like to think that there's a world where we have slightly better technology. Maybe we could utilize, nature in a better way, where we're not exactly reliant on computers. But having said that, with the advent of artificial intelligence, the way that it's working now, we're only starting to scratch the surface on the decisions we make and how they can impact our future going forward. I mean, look at what they're talking about AI is going to be able to do soon, is going to be able to run complete tasks for us, Kelly. So you could give a very conversational instruction like, I just want to order pizza. And maybe you don't know the local number. Maybe you're visiting a friend from out of town, or whatever the case may be. You could just speak into your technology, into your phone perhaps, and it would automatically know where you are because of GPS technology. It would be able to make the order for you. It would already understand your preferences, because a lot of this AI now presents things like memory and obviously things like allergies. And you could just give a simple command, and next thing you know, that pizza arrives without you even thinking about it. So it's kind of like Uber Eats Plus, you know what I mean? Where essentially not only are you hungry and do you want this food, but now it's bringing that to you. And from a disability perspective, think about what that means for independence for other individuals. I mean, I grew up in the 90s as a 90s kid, and if I wanted a pizza, I had to go out to the local Fresh Slice and grab a slice myself, right? But now for this to be able to be brought to us, thanks to just even us thinking about it, and that ties into like companies like Google utilizing ads and how we spend our time on the internet and everything like this. I mean, yeah, it's mind blowing. I get that pizza is a very simple example, but imagine the innovations that we can see as a result of some of this new technology that's just coming out now.
Yeah, you bet.
Even grocery shopping. Look how easy that made it for us.
You bet. It's so different now. And a lot of that when the pandemic just sped everything up. We may not have access to alternate realities yet, but what we do have is the power to shape our own lives through technology and the decisions and the way we embrace decisions now. Every invention, every breakthrough, every personal choice moves us forward. So if you could meet that alternate version of yourself, what choices would you make differently? Marco, great question. Fantastic answers. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Marco Pasqua joining us on the program. Ladies, thank you very much for joining me on the show. We'll talk to you, Amanda, in a month, and Nisreen tomorrow.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Nisreen takes care of everything out there on Instagram and Twitter, so please interact with her at Kelly & Co. AMI. On Parasport Nation, host Alex Smythe hosts upcoming Parasport events. He pulls back the curtain on how Parasports are played, interviews Parasport athletes, coaches, and trainers. So, sir, welcome back. Nice to have you on board. What's going on today as Parasport Nation follows our show on AMI Audio and available as a podcast?
Yeah, Kelly. So today's episode actually is a packaged version of our coverage from the Canadian Blind Hockey Tournament that took place in Toronto over the weekend. Myself, Jeff Ryman, Mike Ross were all on location doing a breakdown, a recap of the weekend that was, along with the coverage of the bronze and gold medal matches, and a discussion around the kind of the rosters for Team Canada, which were announced, and we had some interviews with players. So all the action from the weekend is what people can expect on Tuesday's episode.
Wow. Mammoth amounts of people taking it in at Mattamy on Friday, 1,000. They had the biggest crowd of especially a lot of students there. It really congratulations to you guys and everybody with the coverage that made this event so huge. You're going to learn about it in a few minutes. Now, wheelchair basketball superstar Patrick Anderson officially announced his retirement on Friday. I understand he's on the show this week.
Yeah, so he announced it actually this week, and he's going to be on the show for Friday's edition. I mean, when you're compared to Michael Jordan in your sport,
yes.
I mean, it speaks for itself. He has had such a lasting legacy and impact on the sport. So we're going to chat with him, get his reflection and why it was the right time to retire from the sport he's loved for 25 years, Kelly.
Oh man, that's amazing. What a name in sport, and what a class act. Really great conversation. That'll be Friday. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Alex up next on AMI Audio with so much great content. We'll talk to you later, pal. And remember that you can also find Parasport Nation as a podcast and on YouTube. Subscribe to their page as well, or listen in when they follow us on AMI Audio Tuesdays and Fridays. On our program tomorrow, we'll discover how parents and non-parents can refine their wellness journey. This will be in 3 parts with parenting coach Lucia Belafonte on the show. Also, we have more coverage from CSUN 2025. Matisse Hamel-Nealis will reflect on how the conference went this year with her packed in-person experience. She'll share it all with us. Fedora's off to you. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.